Hi, my name is Ava Russell. I am currently in the CBE program at East Texas A&M University. I have a emphasis on teacher prep, and in this presentation I will be talking about my experience in these courses, and how I have what I've learned about myself and how I've grown, especially as a leader. I think in the ORGL coursework, I have learned many things about leadership that I would have never known ahead of time. I think that it has taught me a lot, and I've grown a lot as a leader, just even in small ways. So my role right now, I'm currently a pre-K3 teacher at a private school here in Bonham, Texas, and this is my second year here. I have my own classroom. I have several students, so I'm already familiar with a lot of the teaching leadership roles, and what comes with that, just having your own classroom and being in charge of 12 little 3 and 4 year olds. So in this video, I'm going to go over who I was as a leader at the beginning of this program, and what I've learned through each of the classes that I've taken, as well as who I am now as a leader and where I plan to go from here as a leader. So, who I was at the beginning of this program. I don't think that I fully saw myself as a leader, not in the usual ways. I'm not in any type of leadership position besides, a teacher, but I've never really seen myself as wanting to be like an administrator or a principal or anything like that, just because some of my traits personally would kind of affect that. I saw leadership more as like a title than a role. Someone's the principal, but they're not only the principal. There's so many things that they are leading behind the scenes that we have no idea about. I've always relied very heavily on instinct and experience. So just from my own experiences, like with leadership, that's what I've believed it to be. I've always been a very strong communicator, but as far as like big decision making, that's a weak spot for me. I have trouble making big decisions. I typically like to go and ask for advice, or I'm going to stress about it for quite some time. I avoid conflict. I love to keep the peace. I'd rather just let it bother me than make it a big deal and there be some potential conflict there. That's one of those traits that I think I wouldn't be so great as a leader, but that's also something that can be worked through. I had very little understanding of leadership theory and everything that comes with it. I've always cared deeply about students and my coworkers. I love to help others. I love to show others compassion and kindness and make sure that they feel comfortable and welcome. And I also think that I have some leadership qualities, even if it's not in the formal structure, and even if I don't have all of the confidence in the world about it. So I think, at the beginning of this, I just didn't see myself as a leader in any way. But now, after going through all of these classes and seeing the different types of leaders and the different types of leadership types, I can definitely see where I do have some leadership qualities, and that is something that I might be interested in the future. So what I learned through each class, I still have I have 5 or 6 classes left to take in this program, so I still have some things to learn, but so far I have taken leadership theory, which taught me all of the different leadership styles and their impact, what they might be best for, which one might be best for this situation and which one might be best for this situation. I learned the importance of routines and expectations. So as a teacher, I already knew the importance of routines, especially in a classroom, but to have expectations is super important too. I learned about planning for things instead of just having an immediate reaction. I also learned about the classroom being a system, so everything works in different ways. Your routines, your rules, your expectations, those things create their own system, and it's super easy for one thing to get messed up and it'll just be a disaster, which is what we want to avoid. And honestly, understanding behavior through structure. So if you're having some behaviors with a student, it may be because they don't have structure at home. They don't have a whole lot of routine at home. So coming to school, it's important for that student to have structure. That way they have structure somewhere in their life. In the Leading Innovation class, I learned a lot about thinking creatively, not just your usual, oh, how do I solve this problem? How can I work around this? What can I do different? I learned that small changes make big impacts. So it may seem really small, but in reality, like it can change so much. And challenging people or things like, we've always done it this way. We don't need to do it any other way. There may be a complete different way that works so much better. You may think that it works great now, but trying something new, you never know what you could find out. And data-driven decision making. I learned about, using data to drive my decisions instead of assumptions. So, tracking progress and behavior through assessment sheets is very important. Data in the classroom is very important. Oh, this worked this year, so let's do it again this year. This definitely did not work this year, so we're gonna try something different. Data supports your students' success. So if you want your students to be successful, you need to be looking at the data. What is making them successful, what's not. And Capstone 1, I learned about organizational level thinking. I learned about identifying strengths and weaknesses, strategic analysis of schools. So, a SWOT analysis. I learned about making realistic recommendations instead of, just assuming something. And I think I definitely gained some confidence in decision making. So that's always great. And critical thinking, that was a fun one. So just slowing down, taking a moment to think about everything before you just jump the gun. Think critically about everything. You can think critically about literally everything, and it doesn't always seem that way. But when you slow down and you look at it, you're like, oh, I could have done it this way. Evaluating situations very carefully. Don't jump the gun. You want to look at all of the details, look at all the data, evaluate it carefully and specifically before just making a reaction. And problem solving with intention. So, you want to solve a problem with intention, not just to solve it. So I want to solve this and it to remain solved. So I'm going to do it with intention. I'm going to make sure that everything is the way that it should be and that I'm doing it the right way. That way we're not coming back to this in a couple weeks. Computer information systems. This one was about technology. Not something that I'm super interested in. I know that we obviously need technology for education, but I learned about efficiency and leadership, organization and communication systems, and technology in education. So like I said, there's technology in education. We use technology for so many things now, so I can see where it was beneficial to me. Organization of public education. I had a lot of fun with this one. I got to see some of the past things that happened in the past with education, and when things were the way that they were. I I got to understand school structures and the different school structures. I learned more about policies and leadership impact and how they intertwine in the school system, and just a broader view of education systems in general. So this was a great class just to see how the school works, all the way around the board, not just in my little classroom. Supervision, supporting coworkers professionally. So I think, again, having a good relationship with your coworkers is super important. Those are your team members. It's very uncomfortable if something's not right. So being sure to always remain professional. Sometimes, friendships get involved in stuff, and that's fine. But, just making sure that you're staying professional, especially if there is conflicts. I learned about feedback and communication, which, again, those are super important things in teaching, and building trust, super important in teaching. Your students need your trust. Your students need you to advocate for them, and you need to be communicating with those parents. So that was a good one. Pathways, Purpose, Exploration, and Career. That's one that I'm just now finishing up. This one was really fun because it was just kind of like more about my career than necessarily teaching. So, looking at things in a way that I typically wouldn't. Looking at my goals, where do I want to be in 5 years? Do I want to start looking at a master's program? Do I want to be in a different state? Do I want to start a side business? I learned a lot about myself as far as like my traits and what my family, friends, what they think about me, and also personal growth and reflection. And then obviously capstone too. This one has also been, I got to do another SWOT analysis, and I really enjoyed doing it for my school because I see the things every day. I know what our strengths are, and I know what our weaknesses are. I know what our opportunities are, and I know what our threats are. So being able to really get in and talk to our director and things like that was great. I love doing that. And also the big interview, that was very helpful. I've sat in some interviews like that, so it wasn't super scary to me, but it's always great to get that practice and, collect yourself and how do I respond in these situations. So who I am now as a leader, I wouldn't say that I'm super confident as a leader necessarily, but I would say that I'm intentional more. I want to make sure that I am always paying attention to what I'm doing and how I'm presenting myself. I do understand more of the why behind decisions. So a decision to a teacher, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but our director makes a decision that the teachers don't necessarily like. There's always a reason why. There's always a reason why they're doing that. They're not just doing that because they know that you like it. There's always a why, and it's hard being a leader. It's hard being in charge. I like to always plan ahead and have a plan instead of, just reacting off instinct. I use my routines and structure very effectively. We have a very strong routine in my classroom, and it just makes for a smoother day altogether. I'd like to say that I handle challenges professionally. Like I said, I would love to just be able to avoid conflict for forever, but that's part of being an adult with an adult job. I try to always lead by example, not only for my students, but my coworkers and my boss. I want to make sure that I'm presenting myself in a positive way. So where do I go from here as a leader? I think, number one, I want to perfect my classroom routines. I want to make sure that my classroom runs smoothly. I want to make sure that I'm limiting those behaviors as much as I can. I try to always make sure that my classroom stays calm and relaxing and not overstimulating or, yelling, things like that. I think goal number 2 would be to possibly look into some leadership roles here at Morningstar. So that could be, a team lead or taking on some extra responsibility somewhere. And I obviously want to support Morningstar's growth and their future expansion, and I would love to see that happen while I'm here. I'm always trying to strengthen family communication. It's great to stay in contact with parents and let them know how their child is doing. And I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things. I love to better myself and better my career and, do better for my students. So yeah, I think that I've definitely seen some growth within these last few months, some growth in myself since being in this program. I feel confident in my ability. Like I wouldn't say I'm ready to take on the biggest leadership role that there is, but definitely, something like a team lead or, I don't know, just some extra responsibilities I think that I could do. I'm very gracious to be able to have the opportunity to learn and continue my learning experience and my education. And I am so excited to see what the future brings for me as far as a teacher and, maybe some possible leadership roles. Thank you.